down every day, I ask that question. I believe in what the visual arts and scholarship can do. Which has to be tamed into a kitty cat. Many people have talked to me about the many things that need to be fixed. But the truth is that for more than 100 years, CAA has worked to make those who think about and write about culture successful. Whether we're working independently or within the confines of an academic or organizational setting, we are a collective effort to support the professional field, which in turn supports all of us as a culture. And this work is even more important in these very challenging times. For example, 4 months ago, we watched the city of Aleppo in Syria being destroyed. In so doing, damage or destruction was caused to 6 of the 6 UNESCO historic sites. Many of the artifacts were either obliterated or damaged beyond repair. But despite the rubble, we have art historians, CAA members, who have written about the area, which in part serves to preserve the past for our future. For example, Hegner Wagpag, an art history professor with degrees from Beirut University College and UCLA, teaches Middle Eastern and Southeastern Studies at the University of California, Davis. Her work specializes in the history of art and architecture in the Middle East, including architectural preservation, museums, and cultural heritage. She has written and recorded much of the cultural and historic elements of the region. And if we were to think back 1,000 years to the medieval period, we may find histories that are applicable even to today's present-day Europe. We can focus on a dissertation by Peter Bovenmeyer's Alternative Anatomies, Medieval Bodies Opened and Imagined, or look at Maria Luca's research in Renaissance Siena as a case study of cross-cultural exchange in central Italy. And then we come to the United States in 2017. In a few short weeks, we've seen the government transform itself from an entity based on acceptance, generosity, and honesty to one organized around an authoritarian strongman. We see the government put in place religious-based bans, which we never thought were possible. We see threats to academic and artistic freedoms on the campuses of our colleges and universities. We hear about the possibility of a complete elimination of funding for the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for Humanities. Advocacy has always been a major part of CAA, and we intend to speak out on these issues. As it has been for the last few years, the conference this year will feature numerous topics ranging from historic and traditional subjects to the most contemporary. Just a quick perusal of your program booklet or your app will show you panels on art in the age of the fiscal crisis, Byzantine and medieval images, marginal and monumental, Black Lives Matter, new studies in Renaissance and Baroque painting, queering art history. In addition, you'll be able to attend sessions on how to advocate for your department, and as Judith mentioned, we're going to be offering a plenary session by the US Latinx Forum. Many of you over the last few weeks have asked if there'll be opportunities for conversations about some of the current political situation here at the conference. And we've worked to make sure that if you want those opportunities, they're here for you. First, if you look at your screens, you'll see a series of topics, and Judith touched on some of these. Please take a moment and look at your catalog because you'll be able to find different topics for you to be able to participate in. Next, we've set aside a space for informal ad hoc conversations to occur. One took place this morning, and they will continue Thursday and Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. in Concourse G. Additionally, we've added a post-it wall in the registration area for you to post your thoughts and ideas 24/7. That wall can be found on Concourse A and Concourse level. And now if you look around your seats, you will see that there are pink sheets of paper that say things, everything from fund the NEA, fund the NEH, resist, stop the immigration ban. And we now have an opportunity for you to take those pieces of paper, stand up, and hold those pieces of paper up, and we will make a collective image of everybody here with a very clear sign.
Oh my God. They don't realize it's so loud.
We'll be putting that image up on social media very soon. Finally, I just want to raise 3 issues that are very important to all of us, both the board and the staff want to address. You know, we have over 3,000 paid registrants here, and then we have the day passes and the session passes, and with the book and trade fair, we'll have over 4,000 people coming through the conference this year. Basically, we're creating a small village here in New York Hilton. I'm looking for the butcher and the baker and the seamstress, and it'd be interesting. And one of the things that, of course, we need to do is we all need to play nice together. The first issue we want to talk about is inclusivity. We need to build CAA into an organization that will strengthen the field, and as a result, our culture. Many of you received letters and emails from CAA asking you to renew your membership. One of your colleagues received that email, and here's what she wrote in return. Why does the College Art Association want my black membership dollars and not my black face and presence in the organization? No one has been able to answer that question. Therefore, I will spend my black membership dollars elsewhere. I immediately called her and we had a lengthy conversation. I discovered that she had been hired as a contemporary curator at an academic art museum, and she had no problem with the way she had been treated by the CAA office. Rather, her problem was the way that she had been treated by other CAA members and professionals in the field at the annual conference. As someone who had recently completed her PhD and was now beginning her professional career, she felt that older, more established members of the field ignored her at the annual conference. She felt excluded as opposed to included. We ask that each of you take a moment to welcome everyone here at the conference. Second, we want to help. You are dues-paying members. We know that most of you pay the dues out of your own pockets. We know that this is coming out of your own family budgets. Allow us to help you. Here at the conference, you'll see many of the staff members and volunteers wearing Ask Me buttons. Please ask them and let them help you to be able to make this to be a rewarding experience. And third and finally, we want your feedback. Many of you responded to the recent survey, and all I can do is say thank you. The results were very insightful. You want an organization that can help you in your field. We hear you about the economic and academic issues that you face. And some of you want more sessions on contemporary topics, while other of you want more sessions on issues that happened before 1800. These are things that we'll be working on in the months and years to come, and they are not mutually exclusive goals. While of course no one can be all things to all people, we can provide many things to many different people and still do a good job. At lunchtime on Friday this week, we'll be hosting a session called My CAA. It's your opportunity to meet the current board and staff and let them hear what you have to say about the future direction of the organization. I hope all of you attend, and your feedback is very important as we build the organization for the 21st century. So thank you. I hope you have a great conference, and please stop me to say hello in the hallways, because seriously, we are all here to tame the CAA beast into a kitty cat. Thank you very, very much. It is now my honor to announce the winners of the 2016-2017 Professional Development Awards. Going as far back as 1993, CAA has honored individuals who have shown outstanding capabilities and a demonstrated distinction in approach, technique, or perspective in their contribution to art history or visual arts. In order to be considered for the award, each candidate had to be a member of CAA, had submitted a completed application, and enrolled in an accredited MFA or PhD program that would allow them to complete their studies by December 31st, 2017. And this year, CAA was able to award $10,000 to each of the two recipients. In the art history field, we received 11 applications. The jury comprised of you, CAA members, our scholars in the field, made the award to Sarah Blaylock from the University of California, Sarah Cruz. The jury also made one honorable mention award to Lex Lancaster, University of Wisconsin-Madison. In the visual arts field, we received 84 applications, and again, jury of CAA members made the award this year to Daniel Kraus from the Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia. And the jury also made two honorable mention awards to Allison Craver, Ohio State University, and Andrew Jilka from the School of Visual Arts here in New York. We would like to extend our thanks to the members of the juries and all the work they did in renewing these applications, and I would make a pitch for any of you who would like to serve on juries. It's a lot of work, but it's extremely rewarding, and we can use as much help for these as we can get. And we would like to now call the recipients up so that we can present the awards to them.
Thank you, Hunter, and congratulations to the awardees. Art matters. Art has always mattered. Whether we are art scholars or artists, critics or designers, gallery goers or museum professionals, art matters to all of us a great deal. Equally importantly, art matters critically to the societies in which we live and work. 50 years ago, in 1967, as Aretha Franklin recorded her soon-to-become hit song, Respect, and Martin Luther King Jr. prepared to denounce the Vietnam War in an April 4th New York City religious ceremony, Faith Ringgold was creating her celebrated Black Light series, addressing the impact of race riots and other issues of the era. More recently, in 1990, when South African apartheid finally ended and Nelson Mandela and other political prisoners were released from incarceration, the important work of South African artists, black and white, women and men, in bringing inequality and racism into public view began to be broadly acknowledged. Within a few weeks of today, the Museum of Modern Art, or a few weeks ago, began a project of rehanging works by artists from majority Muslim nations facing travel bans in this country. Art matters. As the 105th College Art Association annual conference gets underway, it is imperative that we reflect on these and related art matters. on the close connections between art making and activism, and the vital role that artists, art scholars, and other professionals play in tackling critical issues of the day, whether it be war, racism, sexism, or other forms of discrimination. Art matters. It serves as a vital site not only of engagement and resistance, advocacy and education, problem solving and invention, but also as a vital means of opening up and re-envisioning the world around us. Art matters to us both as individuals and as parts of societies in which we live and work. In the increasing attacks not only on the humanities, social sciences, and sciences, but also on the arts, the importance of CAA as the leading organization that brings together practitioners and scholars within the same broader umbrella is all the more important. The so-called STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math are important, but they do not overshadow the arts and humanities. Indeed, throughout history, each has often enhanced the other. Art matters, yet I have a confession that I must make, that at a key moment in my life, I did not feel this to be the case. It was the summer after my freshman year in college at the University of Vermont. I was working in the Senate when one bleak morning I found myself in tears, standing in DuPont Circle, watching as Bobby Kennedy's body arrived here in a hearse after his assassination. Martin Luther King Jr. had been shot a few months earlier. I returned to college that fall, but concluded soon after that art history and studio art were simply not enough. I quit college at the end of that year and joined the Peace Corps. It was here in Africa where I first realized that politics and art were integrally co-joined. Every book I read on African art was worse than the last. The field needed a correction. Art history needed a correction. And after my 2-year term ended, I returned home to finish my degree and make plans to attend graduate school with a focus on African art. CAA then, as today, was a big deal. Elation and genuine fear were my initial emotions when my first CAA paper proposal was accepted on a politically fraught panel addressing semiotics and art chaired by Henri Zerner. Much later, we would become colleagues. These kinds of connections are part of what CAA is and what makes it so important. For me, a timely Art Bulletin article no doubt helped with tenure. But well before then, I felt it was important to engage more formally with CAA, as much for African art as for anything else. It was for this reason that I ran for the CAA Board of Directors, and years later ran a second time. When I was a graduate student, many still believed that Africa had no arts outside of Egypt, and Egypt itself was part of a strange exo-African netherworld somewhere between Mesopotamia and Greece. African art, if it was considered art at all, was assumed to be primitive. CAA for me was where the real political and work would begin. Through CAA board connections, I and others persuaded the editor of Abrams to drop the outrageous primitive art chapter from Jansen's best-selling History of Art textbook. In due course, African and African diaspora arts and those who made and studied them began reshaping not only art departments around the country, but also exhibitions, major journals, book publications, and key prizes within CAA and other organizations. It was CAA that played a central and ongoing role in this. What had begun for me at CAA as an engagement about my field soon blossomed into other issues. Open access to museum collections and publishing, for example. When I was a board member initially, one of our group began to work with the Metropolitan Museum to make their art photographs accessible on the web. This effort has continued, and on February 7th, 1 week ago, the Metropolitan announced that all of its images of public domain works in the Met collection will now be available under Creative Commons for use by everyone. This is a huge step forward that will benefit all of us. So too has been CAA's path-forging efforts in fair use, one of our most important and indeed revolutionary undertakings, for which I and others already are seeing considerable savings in terms of financing and especially time. Art matters. CAA members working together have achieved important ends. but we can and must do more. Art access inequality is not the only issue to attend to. Access to quality higher education is a vital concern for both us and our students, as are questions of student living and student loan fees and affordability, along with the ability of professionals in our field to gain a viable living and secure employment in educational and art-linked institutions. I benefited by my undergraduate training in a then inexpensive public university. My graduate student education would not have been possible without affordable student loans. I could not have written my PhD without a government-funded Fulbright fellowship. For me and many others, book projects would not have been completed without NEH grants or others at tax-supported institutions such as CASVA, the Clark, and the Getty. Museum exhibitions funded by both NEA and NEH are critical to what we do, and these same museums bring in billions of dollars of revenue into local cities and towns. Art matters, and this is where CAA is critical as an organization, focusing with a new sense of urgency not only on the long-standing programs where we have excelled, but also speaking out on core issues that are important to us all, such as diversity, equal access, and sustainability. Social activism is a key part of CAA's strategic plan. As we move forward, changes in CAA that are already underway and will become more evident shortly will help make our organization even stronger and more engaged. From the re-energized annual conference to a far more dynamic web presence, from larger rules for our affiliated societies to added benefits that will help members in their professional and personal lives. Art matters. It matters to us. It matters to the communities and broader societies in which we live and work. Thank you. And now it is my enormous pleasure to bring the 2017 CAA, to present the 2017 CAA Awards of Distinction. With these awards, CAA honors individuals whose accomplishments transcend their disciplines and contribute to the profession as a whole. By recognizing outstanding achievements, CAA reaffirms its mission to encourage the highest standards of scholarship, practice, connoisseurship, criticism, and teaching in the visual arts. I'll identify each award in this year's winners. I encourage you all to consult the Convocation program, where the full citation for each winner is printed and where you may read the enthusiastic tributes. I also want to thank the juries for their work on the CAA Awards of Distinction. Will the awardees please join me on stage? And if I may just ask that the audience hold their applause until the end, that would be great. So please come up. The Charles Rufus Morey Book Award honors a distinguished book in the history of art published in the English language, named in honor of one of the founding members of CAA and the first teachers of art history in the United States. It was established in 1953. The Charles Rufus Morey Book Award is presented to Kishwar Redsby for the Transnational Mosque, Architecture and Historical Memory in the Contemporary Middle East, the University of North Carolina Press. The Alfred H. Barr Jr. Award for Museum Scholarship is presented to the author of a distinguished catalog in the history of art published in the English language under the auspices of a museum, library, or collection. Named in honor of the founding director of the Museum of Modern Art and a scholar in early 20th century painting, it was established in 1980. The Alfred H. Barr Jr. Award is presented to Ruth Fine, editor for Procession, The Art of Norman Lewis, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, in association with the University of California Press. The Alfred H. Barr Award for Smaller Museums, Libraries, Collections, and Exhibitions is presented to Camila Padilla and Barbara Anderson, editors of A Red Like No Other, How Cornelia Colored the World, Skira Rizzoli, in association with the Museum of International Folk Art. The Arthur Kingsley Porter Prize, established in 1957 in memory of a founding member of CAA and one of the first American scholars of the discipline, is awarded for a distinguished article published in the Art Bulletin by a scholar of any nationality who is under the age of 35, who has received the doctorate no more than 10 years before the acceptance of the article for publication. The Arthur Kingsley Porter Prize is presented to Christine I. Ho for The People Eat for Free and the Art of Collective Production in Maoist China. The Art Bulletin, September 2016. The Frank Jewett Mather Award for Art Criticism, first published in 1963 for art journalism, is named in honor of the art critic, teacher, and scholar who was affiliated with Princeton University until his death in 1953. It is awarded for significant published art criticism that has appeared in publication in a one-year period. The Frank Jewett Award for Art Criticism is presented to Laura U. Marks for Anan al-Cinema, Affections for the Moving Image, MIT Press. The Art Journal Award, established in 2000, is presented to the author of the most distinguished contribution published in the Art Journal. The award is presented by Amy A. DuPont for Khadija Hofer's Türken in Deutschland as Counter-Publicity. Art Journal, Winter 2016. The Distinguished Feminist Award, first presented in 2009, honors a person who, through his or her art, scholarship, or advocacy, has advanced the cause of equality for women and the arts. The Distinguished Feminist Award is presented to Joan Martyr. The Distinguished Teaching of Art Award, established in 1972, is presented to an individual who's been actively engaged in teaching art for most of his or her career, who's developed a philosophy or technique of instruction, and has encouraged his or her students to develop their own individual abilities. The Distinguished Teaching of Art Award is presented to Virginia Derryberry, Professor Emeritus, University of North Carolina, Asheville. The Distinguished Teaching of Art History Award is presented to an individual who's been actively engaged in teaching art history for most of his or her career. Established in 1977, this award celebrates an individual who provides inspiration to a broad range of students, sets rigorous intellectual standards, and contributes to the advancement of knowledge and methodology in the discipline. The Distinguished Teaching of Art History Award is presented to Patricia Magnardi, Professor Emeritus of Art History at the City University of New York. The Art Award for a Distinguished Body of Work, first presented in 1988, is given to a living artist of national or international stature for exceptional work through exhibitions, presentations, and performances. The Artist Award for a Distinguished Body of Work is presented to Carrie James Marshall. The Distinguished Artist Award for Lifetime Achievement, dating from 1988, celebrates the career of an artist who has demonstrated particular commitment to her or his work throughout a long career and has had an impact nationally and internationally on the field. The Distinguished Artist Award for Lifetime Achievement is presented to Faith Ringgold. Distinction in Scholarship in Conservation, honoring outstanding contributions by one or more persons who individually or jointly have enhanced understanding of art through the application of knowledge and experience in conservation, art history, and art. The CAA AIC Award for Distinction in Scholarship and Conservation is presented to Tom J.S. Lerner. Mary Miller needs no introduction. She's a Sterling Professor of History of Art at Yale University, serving not only as an art historian for a period of time as chair of the History of Art Department, for 6 years as Dean of Yale College. Before assuming the deanship, she served as Master of Saybrook College for nearly a decade. She earned her A.B. from Princeton in 1975 and her Ph.D. from Yale in 1981. She combines the critical characteristics of scholar, administrator, enthusiastic teacher, curator, and somebody who brings together in a really provocative, thoughtful, energetic, and extraordinarily important way the key elements of our field as a whole. A specialist in the art of the ancient New World, she curated courtly art of the ancient Maya at the National Gallery of Art and wrote a catalog of the same title with Simon Martin, who was senior epigrapher at the University of Pennsylvania Museum. Among her additional works are the murals of Bonampak, The Blood of Kings with Linda Shealy, The Art of Mesoamerica, Mayan Art and Architecture, The Gods and Symbols of Ancient Mexico and the Maya with Carl Tobe, and A Pre-Columbian World co-edited with Jeffrey Quilter. Most recently, she's completed printing a map of Mexico City and The Spectacle of Late Mayan Court, Reflections on the Murals of Bonampak. I have learned personally more from her writing, her engagement, her efficacy as a teacher and an administrator of nearly everyone I know. I love her thoughtful engagement, her new work on preservation, and the way she boldly stepped forward to addressing and tackling some of the critical issues in her field. We have a lot to learn from her in many ways, from all of the various things she's done in the past and what she has been doing in the recent history. So let's welcome Mary Miller.
Thank you all so much for being here this afternoon. I'm going to take us back and into some of the things that have been on my mind about the very nature of our discipline in the next few minutes. So imagine, if you will, that you were inventing the humanities today. Where would you start? Would you start with a poet singing songs of heroes and gods, of ancient battles and faithful wives? Would you start with a philosopher who guided his acolytes at the market to discuss how one made an argument regarding ethics or politics? If you would, in fact, want to share your ideas and your case with those far beyond the Athenian marketplace, then you need a mechanism. And that mechanism, a writing system that replicates speech, would allow you to share those ideas far beyond the small community, from the same class and country with whom you frame them. Such systems are remarkable technology, allowing speech to be transmitted without the requirement of one-to-one human communication. What a miracle it is that the words thought, argued, sung, could be conveyed by simple scratches across hundreds or thousands of years. But would you start there today? This is, of course, where the humanities start in our students' education. And it's with the word. Some might say it's with Homer, but almost certainly it starts much earlier in Babylon. Let's see if, oh, darn it, I want to see if I can make that thing turn for you. There it goes. And so, okay, it's the version of the Pythagorean theorem 1,000 years before Pythagoras. So you can give that a new name. It's the word sung and shared, and then to be the subject of discussion and thought, far beyond the ken of those who first imagined them. But the transmission of the word was hard. It was dependent on elite materials of scrolls and ink, and dry places to preserve them, even as the copies and translations multiplied through time, breaking into visual form that tells us many things about time and human imagination, along with representation. Paleolithic caves of 30,000 years ago speak to us of action, of the verb made capable of capturing the unfolding of time and space simultaneously. But these messages were sealed away and lost until the 20th century. Humans also found ways to make other sorts of transmissions, capturing music in the forms that our eyes see. For the latter, one of the remarkable advances comes when the eye can be trusted with how it managed information, as it was in the cave paintings, and when the hand could replicate what the eye saw, rather than what that annoying brain knew, a hand-eye problem that waxed and waned across the world and across time. Word and image may all have been on some equal footing until the early modern, when the text became king. With the advent of the printing press, the word was triumphant over the image and music in the West. Religious transmission was easier to standardize and share. I'll just skate across some of the transformations that such dissemination helped make possible, from the Reformation to the Enlightenment to independence movements across Latin America. And then there was the belated discovery in the West in mid-19th century of how to make cheap paper. This is what happens to it. Suddenly, inexpensive words could be everywhere. If the text had been king, it was now the emperor. Hamlet's Act 4 could be read by anyone, any pagination, the same Claudius and Gertrude. An individual denied an elite education, but with access to a Carnegie Library in the United States, could find her way to the same words that the most elite person in the world had at his fingertips. Was this dissemination criticized? Oh yeah. Certain texts were expurgated to address the danger of the word. But the sources for interpreting the past, whether Bernal Diaz's description of the true conquest or the Suetonius 12 Caesars, could now be consulted to develop a historical past, as translations also flourished at the beginning of the 20th century. There were multiple sources, all widely available. And in the United States, nothing developed national literacy like the McGuffey Reader. Studies of literature and history flourished, and they became cornerstones of American liberal arts, fundamental to a general education. The story of America's history was inculcated through the development of textbooks that emphasized a single narrative, generally told around the same great men and played against the gazetteer. Beyond these maps, illustrations were by and large reserved for zoology and botany textbooks. As text-based and textbook knowledge flourished, studies of art and music continued to require specialized and expensive access. What did it take to launch the field of art history? It took much more than the text. At its birth in the late 19th century, it was the most elite of humanistic inquiry, requiring access to works of art themselves and a library in which to consult earlier references. Even the roadmap to the location of works of art had not yet been written, from the religious establishment to the elite palace, whether in Japan or Sweden. The market made some works more available, while others quietly disappeared into new hands, sometimes less accessible, sometimes more. Collections were formed at some European universities, notably the Fitzwilliam of Cambridge, for example, and the Yale University Art Gallery had stacks of paintings for students to study. Oops, I'm going backwards, apologies. Because of the acquisition of Colonel John Trumbull's pictures as the painter of the Revolution and a commitment to found a college museum. This museum would grow to have deep collections of what we now call the early modern by mid-century, particularly at private institutions, but sometimes in public. Here, I think particularly of Indiana, Texas, is having great university museums. Colleges and universities came to view works of art as bearers of unique cultural knowledge and so worthy of collection and preservation. Art could tell a story that might not be characteristic of the text, whether in the richness of painted fabrics or the glance that deflected attention away from a principal subject. Art's power would be reflected in prints and emulations. its ability, through drawings and workshops and choice of material, to offer a window on both a practice and a maker in a given place and find, could be recognized. And so collections grew. What's now clear to us is that the unique charismatic object, particularly deployed for historical inquiry or interrogated for meanings that contradict a text or that were unintended, can open windows into understandings of the past, helping reveal more than the text-based narrative. The process of textual compilation, thank you so much, transpires along a different axis in the world of art, where the practice of copying in one generation is more likely to lead to innovation in the next. There was a time, and for some institutions, that time might still be now, that the replicated image was feared. Would photographs of works diminish the original if a black and white print or photo were available? Would it discourage study of the original? We laugh now, Antiques Roadshow, because that replica was such a pale relative of the original. But what about the high-quality digital image, or the three-dimensional image that can be printed for you to have and to hold? The digital handheld camera and even the selfie have unleashed an unprecedented wave of visual distribution of the museum object. But these too engage questions of the original, bringing the eye closer, and this is from the catalog, Red, so another shout out to Camilla Padilla and to Barbara Anderson for this catalog. Bringing the eye closer to the daub of paint, in this case, now we know, made with cochineal, and bringing the eye so close in this daub of paint, bringing the viewer back time and again, toggling between the image captured and the work itself. Those black and white photographs were expensive to produce. Now it's faster to upload a picture and disseminate it than it is to type in a text. Nothing could be more different from the circumstances of the reproduced art image at its birth. From the 19th century engraving and photograph, the nature of visual imagery marched along slowly, in increments that charted steady progress. Color would replace black and white imagery. Still a very live practice known to many in this room, but it will never be practiced by many others who are young and in this room. The study of the world's art principally took place by a student's commandeering a large table, opening heavy and oversized books that might well not circulate, and beginning the study of the object, often with unillustrated catalogs, juxtaposed with museum exhibition volumes and auction catalogs. Ambivalence was there from the beginning. The image could not adequately be captured by other media, yet there was little other means for the study of works of art. The boxes of university prints, some of you remember them, were transformative. They were ideal for the mental collecting of images, a visual data set in which all objects were leveled into black and whites at a single scale. For all their flaws, university prints managed to stay in business through the 80s. But what had been a stable experience of the primary image for well over 100 years has been disrupted. The image is where billions of individuals start their queries to search engines. It's how we communicate with one another, and why Snapchat threatens Facebook. Images trump text. And the moving image, along with the three-dimensional one, will continue to perform changes on how we see and think that we have not yet conceived. It's the text that's marginalized in this scenario as the images come to the fore. But now that images are at the fore, how might art historians and others capitalize on this phenomenon? Certainly, museums are our allies, disseminating the high-quality images of their works. It's a constant challenge to upgrade the images we use, especially in our PowerPoints, and we can do it just by virtue of the phone shots we grab. We have no business circulating pink slides that retain the fingerprints of our forebearers. Art Store does its best, but it's now part of JSTOR, a very different kind of business. And our images have to move and enlarge with every possible detail so that our students can experience them, not just see them in class. We have to unleash the machines to sick the multiple tools of digital humanities on the images. Use machine learning, for example, to search this collection in the Meineke Library for boxers or women with shiny buttons. We learn things, and our students learn even more. But how do we get the attention of our students? We know that one of the big, gorgeous truths is that the humanities are laden with the ambiguities of interpretation that call for creativity, which in turn nurtures resilience, resistance, and insights that will spawn new ideas in the future, that break down boundaries and open young minds. We know that freshmen can learn to look and in turn see what some of us have not in years of looking. But I know where the best and brightest are being pushed and encouraged and called. Smart high school students believe that the road to the future is paved with STEM. And heck, I get it, especially if you're in an under-resourced school. That's where many of the opportunities to scale up for higher education lie. Many of our colleagues across the humanities have adopted the concept of STEAM, in which it is the addition of art that turns STEM to STEAM, from a foundational trunk to the energy that carries us upward. But in this arena, art history and the study of visual culture has an advantage, and we should take it. It is as if Aristotle himself had reached out and said, "Art, let me introduce you to my old friend science." Well, he was thinking about astronomy, the science possible for a culture that did not have zero. It's as if the impassioned plea of C.P. Snow in his famous essay on the two cultures of science and literature and the need for a bridge between the two could at last see the sciences and humanities joining one another. Snow was dismayed by the indifference of humanists to the discoveries that were launching revolution after revolution in the sciences. But if once true, it is not. Art historians are not indifferent to science. This bridge is possible because something new has arrived for the study of art, in which technique and processes new to art history reveal a new history, one which only science and technology can discover. Make no mistake, the technical history of art has always played a role in our discipline. Of course, this is what specialists who determine states of prints and analyze paper do, in a work that has played and continues to play a key role in the market. It's come to analog photography, now a closed set, and with repercussions as to how we see and understand the material world. It's a specialized skill set to know what you're looking for and to make sense of the outcome. Increasingly, that sense is being bolstered by new techniques that change our understanding of artistic practice. We can know now, for example, that Jan van Eyck was carefully harvesting panels from a single oak tree. Scientists can look right through the layers of paint in the Ghent altarpiece to see where the 15th century work ended and the 16th century repaint begins. We can see inside and through a Maya vessel, long admired for the perfection of shape, color, and application of design, to discover that the potting was also a tour de force, a coiled effort that achieves the uniformity of the wheel in a hand-built form, and that the rattles within were just as meticulously executed and revealed the hands of potters linked to painters across the Maya world. Science turns out to be the best friend that art could ever hope to have. When science and technology meet art, we find ourselves at start. We're partners partners, not afterthoughts. I hate the little carrot of the A jumping in there. On the one hand, a lot of the scientific work is the bread and butter of the work of scientists, some of it without novelty of technique, let's be honest, on the scientific side. But their applications are thrilling. The analyses are challenging, notwithstanding. And the excitement? Well, imagine being the freshman with technical training who works with a graduate student art historian, together revealing a hidden photograph, as took place in January for a team from Yale and Princeton. Will you be drawn to further discovery? Imagine being the student who finds that her quantitative work has her building histograms of the deployment of blues in late 20th century, mid-century French painting. Will you be pulled into the materiality itself and into collaborations? And for art historians, mastery of both the analysis of technical studies and the ability to execute them yourself may come to be as important as knowledge of a language was just a few years ago. This new set of tools opens new possibilities in publication. Art historians have lived and died by the solo authored publication. But if scientists are committing time and laboratory resources, we'll need to share credit, acknowledging the richness of collaborations. A thank you in the notes is not sufficient. Like many of you, I have watched enrollments dwindle across the humanities, and I've suffered every time some public figure takes a swipe at art history as a discipline. But I believe we now find ourselves in a position of extraordinary opportunity. This is the time for start, and starting now. Thank you.
Well,
Great.
this was great. Thank you, everybody. And don't forget to vote. Don't forget to have a great time tomorrow. And let's all meet up here at the reception. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Thanks, well. Did it.
Where's my bag? Congratulations. So you got there with.
Can't wait to see that photo.
Which one?
Again?
Which one?
The photo. Was this 2000?
Oh, yeah.
Lifted up.
Quit talking. Just smile. Thank you so much. See you.
How are you?
I just heard you wait. Oh, you smell good. I gotta rub up my hands. Do you guys
And
like that?
stop.